Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of MBOM. I'm super excited about today's episode, but before we get to that, I just wanted to give everyone a quick reminder about the awesome promotion that Levi Morehouse from last episode provided with us for Ceteris. And for those of you who missed the episode, you should go check it out. It's the importance of accounting and bookkeeping with Levi Morehouse, and he is the founder and CEO of a company based out of the US called Ceteris. And Ceteris focuses on accounting and bookkeeping for small business owners specific to the yoga industry. So they have an entire branch that is specific to our industry. And he has offered a super cool promotion for listeners of MBOM where you can get your first 3 months with Ceteris. This is a super great deal if you're starting a studio, if your studio is in the first couple years of life and you just need a good idea of where you're going, how you're doing, all of that. Even if you have an older studio and you don't have your practices quite in place or you want some advice on some other tips and tricks, this is an awesome thing to take advantage of. So to get this promotion, all you need to do is visit yoga.ceteris.com, and Ceteris is Ceterus. I would definitely encourage you to take advantage of this offer while it's available. So moving on to today's episode, I have Kaeleigh Doherty, who is the founder of the Banff Yoga Festival. And I met Kaeleigh when I first started working for Lululemon a couple years ago. She's an amazing yoga teacher in the community in Banff. Super inspirational girl with a ton of great ideas. And I remember when she was first talking about starting up the Banff Yoga Festival and all these challenges that she kept running into. And it's really amazing that she was able to successfully put together this amazing festival and that it's now running again in 2017. And I'm sure for the years to come, the community loved it. And she's just done a great job at creating this event that brings people together in the yoga space. And so what we're talking about today is basically the Banff Yoga Festival, the things that worked out well, the things that'll change for next year, the tough things that she ran into, the challenges of starting an event like this, where her inspiration got gathered from, and so much more. Kaeleigh is such a beautiful person. She's such a beautiful soul to talk to. So I'm really grateful for this interview, and I hope that you guys really enjoy it. So without further ado, here's Kaeleigh. All right, I'm super excited to be joined by Kaeleigh Doherty today, who's the founder of the Banff Yoga Festival. Kaeleigh, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I was thinking that we would start where your idea for the Banff Yoga Festival first came from. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So I had just come back from university, moved back to Banff, and I was applying to master's programs of various professions, and I wasn't getting in. So I, after receiving my last letter of kind of denial, I ended up just thinking of the idea in a coffee shop, White Bark Cafe, and just started like right after it kind of came to me as an epiphany. I kind of knew that there needed to be something to kind of respect what was already in the area. Like there's such a strong wellness community here and I just wanted to celebrate it. And so, once the idea came to me, I just put my head down for almost a year and just kind of started planning the entire thing from nothing.
Yeah. I remember when I was working at Lululemon at that point, and you sort of like expressing this idea and being like, wow, that's such a good idea. Like, why has nobody ever done this before? Did you find it surprising that when you came to Banff from Montreal that there wasn't a yoga festival in this like extremely like high wellness yoga community?
It's funny. It's like yoga festivals seem to be, at that point they were like Wanderlust obviously addressed this great niche that, there's a need for a yoga, kind of a wellness and music festival. And so I thought wouldn't it be great if there was one here? And now that kind of, like local festivals are starting to become more and more popular, I'm like, oh, so thankful that I thought of this and actioned it first, because it is set, like, as you know, the community in Banff and Canmore, the yoga instructors and the people who live there, they're all, like, most people have such a strong awareness of well-being. And so I think that's kind of, it's just so natural. It just fits, so it's, I feel very lucky, if anything.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert?
No, I bought it, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay. It'll be interesting once you read it, because she kind of talks about, this isn't too much of a spoiler, she talks about how, like, creative ideas, like, there's like a flow of creative ideas. It's almost like they're floating around the universe, and like, you grasp onto a creative idea, and like, sometimes we follow through with these ideas, sometimes we let them go, and then it's like all of a sudden we see that idea somewhere else, and it's like the idea has found its way to a new person to do it. That just made me think of that.
Totally. And I feel like, it's in almost every town or major city, there's already something yoga related. And I had so much experience and was so in that, in the wellness industry, that it just, I was already kind of in the know, but yeah, the fact that it worked out is just so great.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. For anyone listening who's like, wow, creating a yoga festival, that sounds so cool, but like, I don't even know where to start. Like, what was the process of starting up a festival?
I think for me, I was really like, I'm such an ideas person. So for me, it was really about just creating structure in the planning process, because if I didn't, I think it could have been a total, just a total disaster. I think to start, it was mainly getting the venue and finding a venue that would facilitate enough people. That being said, I didn't really know how many people would show up to this, but that was the very first step. And as soon as I found the venue, then it just pieced together so easily.
Okay.
And then of course I just used the resources I already had to bring in teachers that I either knew from Montreal or from Banff and Canmore and kind of that community that I've been in for almost 10 years. It was about finding resources first, and then also I did a lot of meeting with different mentors and and business owners and people who had done the same thing as me, and I just sat down with them and asked them questions.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's kind of like what I do with the podcast, is like pick people's brains essentially, and then like broadcast it for other people to explore. I think it's so good to learn from other people who have done things, though, because people make mistakes and they learn from them, and it's cool if you can learn from other people's mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so great to just get also like feedback or any kind of constructive criticism. Like I always seek that, and I'm always like, be completely honest. What do you think of this? Or and also just especially in the areas where I'm not as well versed, like I wasn't the greatest with budget, so I really tried to meet with people who knew everything about that topic, right? So, there was so much research put into that in the beginning, because I just wanted to do it right, and I wanted it to sustain itself, and I wanted it to be a long-term thing. So, I invested a lot of time researching and meeting and networking.
Yeah, that's great. It's you can tell like how passionate you are about that just by like how much time you put into that.
Yeah. It was I'd say it almost took me it definitely took me a full year to plan, and that was just wanting to do everything super thoroughly and super quality as well.
Yeah. And then how did you go about finding teachers for the festival?
Well, I think a lot of it was sourcing kind of who I already knew, and just going back and forth from between Montreal and Banff in my 20s. I knew a lot of teachers. I grew up around the Banff teachers, and knowing that I really wanted the festival to have a little bit of a different approach, to be more locally focused. I just used the locals, and I approached the ones who really resonated with me first, and those were the people that were the headliners.
Cool, that's awesome. Yeah, you got fabulous teachers. The lineup for last year was amazing. I'm sure it'll be the same for this year.
Oh yeah, super exciting.
And so it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to do some research and figure out, what the community needs, like how to do a budget for this. And then you found a venue, then you got teachers. And then what was the next step once you had your teachers?
The teachers was kind of an ongoing process. Like I definitely, first, as I mentioned, I sourced locally. So I approached people within the community, and then I wanted to bring in, some teachers from the region that maybe aren't as familiar with Banff, but would, bring some fresh knowledge into the festival and a new personality to practice with. And so I approached a few teachers in Calgary, and then a few others just via word of mouth from either the local teachers that were already involved, or I sourced like great resources. Like I asked some Lululemon staff that I'd known, and then from there, also just getting the word out. So that was a whole other ball game. I think the teachers really, really helped with that, because they were super passionate about the project as well. So they were always wanting to share it and tell people about it. And so that was really great. And then of course, like the social media piece. And then again, it was just, I actually moved myself to Calgary for 3 months, and just met with different wellness practitioners, different businesses that were in the wellness industry, and then tried to get them involved with the festival.
Okay, awesome. And how are you getting these like wellness people involved, like as sponsors, or like just getting them to like bring staff to the festival, or what was their involvement?
Well, we had the trade show piece, and so it's difficult because in Banff, like, business owners already pay this business license fee, and so you don't want to take away from what like the Banff businesses are doing. So what I really wanted to highlight at this festival was this alternative approach to our well-being, and so brought in businesses specifically. We curated businesses that addressed either something yoga related, or addressed a practice in well-being that may not have been highlighted in the town yet. So, for example, like we brought in like raw food, and there's not a raw food restaurant in Banff, although it's it's picking up, and the vegetarian cuisine, and then just different approaches to how we make products and how we shop and that kind of thing. So, and then, well-being can be so many things. It can be you can approach it in so many different areas of your life. So like by what you consume, by how you see your community, your environment. And so we just really were sensitive to who we brought in to make sure that they shared those kind of same values.
Yeah, I love that, because it's like, you can think of wellness as just like how much you exercise, but it's also like what you consume in your body, like the things you put on your body, like
yes,
shampoo,
totally.
cream, like your makeup products. It's like
Exactly.
this whole sphere of things.
How your coffee is made, where the beans are sourced from, where the fabric of your clothes are made of or sourced from, where it's made, who's making it, like all those things. I think they can be yogically approached. And I think the whole festival just, I really wanted to highlights this kind of new wave. I mean, if you go to Montreal or Toronto, like it's this new wave of thinking of kind of alternative clothing and diet and is already well on its way. Whereas in Alberta, I think we kind of love our meat and potatoes. I think we're just kind of, it's catching on. It's definitely starting to.
Yeah. It's interesting too with Banff because it's this like hub of wellness, but it's also this big tourist town. And I found it surprising being there, like when people would come into Lululemon and be like, where's somewhere where I can get like a big salad to eat? And I'm like, like there's not really there's like Earl's you could get a salad at, which is like not really even that healthy. Or you could go to like Wildflower, like the local coffee shop, and you can get like some pretty healthy eats there. And it's strange that it's this like community of wellness that's grown there, yet the town kind of hasn't caught up with like the vegetarian, raw food, juice bars.
Yes, I know.
It's getting there though.
Yeah, I think it's so tough to have a business in Banff in the first place. So I think the niche businesses, it's kind of scary because, if you don't do well, then you've just accumulated like massive costs. So,
totally.
So that's why it was really interesting to have these juice bars and these, because it was, people were so excited about it. And, just so excited about it. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, why isn't this in Banff? Like, it totally should be. And it clearly, like, did great, like smoothies and juice were something we had at the festival, and they were super, super busy. So
yeah, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And so what was it like to like make the festival go live after all these like months of preparation, or I guess a year of preparation, and to see like ticket sales start coming in?
It was, as soon as I got my first ticket sale, I was like, okay, this is real. And I just wanted to make it even better. Like, as soon as someone commits to you in that way, like that financial commitment, I just was like, I already knew that I wanted to create a really quality event. But as soon as I saw that that person purchased the ticket, I said, I get a notification every single time someone does, and it motivates me even more to make sure the event is totally dialed and of like high quality. So yeah, I think it's like they're trusting you to create a great experience, and so that's truly what I want this festival to be, is this experience of well-being and of all different realms, and kind of a motivator to take care of ourselves. So
yeah,
it was just fuel. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then as like tickets were selling more and more, did you have like a goal in mind for how many you wanted to sell?
Like, I had this little spreadsheet I made, and which someone laughed at it when I showed it to them, like hoping they would give me some feedback. It was very, very simple and high level, but I made this kind of like break even spreadsheet and what I needed, how many people needed to attend in order for me to just at least cover the costs. And I think it was like 120 people, it was 70 people. So I was like, I hope I get 70. And we definitely surpassed that. We had lots of people. So I think last year there was 350 people. They weren't necessarily all like full weekend, but throughout the weekend, that's how many people bought tickets. And then of course we opened up different areas of the festival to be free, so that if you couldn't afford the festival, like at least you could have different experiences of it. And we have a count of a total of 550, I believe.
That's so amazing. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's 650. But so it was great. It was, and the market was open to the public, and it was just this really feel-good event, all focused on well-being. So I mean, everyone there kind of was like-minded, and it was really great.
Yeah, it's always really cool if that's like, I think in any industry or any space, when you like can kind of come together with people who sort of value the same things as you, or they like the same things as you. Like, it's always cool to be in this like area with other people who are just really interested in the same things you're interested in.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's empowering too, just to know, the practice of yoga is meant to be for your mat only, but there's something about collectively practicing in that way that's it's very empowering and very motivating.
Yeah, definitely. It's super cool. And then so for this year, like what things did you do differently, or what things did you learn from last year that you implemented for this year?
I learned so much and things that, I really didn't expect to learn. I thought, okay, I'll learn about project management, or I'll learn about event management and, or, different relationship building or that kind of thing. But it was truly just, there were so many things I could have never even thought of beforehand. Just like things like managing people and managing volunteers and different personalities. And then of course, like contracts and all those kinds of things. Like I learned so much, about so many different areas, but, I think that mainly like the people side of thing, the relationship building, that was the biggest learning. And it was totally humbling. Like I think it's such an essential part to any kind of business. It's just, relationship building, the ethics behind that, respecting people, respecting their work. That was a huge learning. This year, what's different about it, it's definitely bigger. I've got more help, because for now, like I feel less, at first I'm okay with not paying myself, but I didn't want to ask someone to help me and not be able to pay them. So this year, we've committed to contracting some people to be involved. And then of course, who we're bringing in for the festival this year is a little bit different. We're bringing in some exciting, special guests and, a great new band. There's just the quality was impeccable last year, but I think we've actually stepped it up a notch even this year. So I'm so excited for this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Are you using like the same venue and spaces and stuff this year as you did last year?
Yeah, same venue. And we really want to keep it as, we want to use as many of the kind of organic local spots as possible. Last year I really wanted to use as many heritage spaces as I could, different venues that had some sort of sentimental value within the town. So actually, I wasn't able to do it just for financial reasons. But this year, because of capacity, we're just expanding to the White Museum, which I am so excited about. And we'll be doing this beautiful class in the White Museum. And I'm just thrilled because I love that space and I love everything that it stands for and everyone that it stands for. So, yeah.
That's really neat. It's cool to bring in because there's so much history in the town of Banff, yet I think that it kind of gets lost sometimes in it being in this beautiful setting. Like people lose kind of the heritage behind it because the mountains and everything else there is to do there. Yeah. And I love, Banff is so incredible because it's an organically built mountain town. It wasn't developed and it just slowly grew and became what it is now. And, so there's so many incredible significant spaces that eventually, or maybe throughout time, I hope to highlight with yoga. And I really love the thought of yoga, the practice of yoga, just almost paying homage to what exists, it pays homage to the scenery. It pays homage to different spaces when you're in them, and you just kind of develop this appreciation for them, because for a moment they kind of become this sacred space. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the White Museum, I'm so thrilled about. And then we also have a new hotel that's opened in Banff called the Moose, and it's right on Banff Avenue, and there's a beautiful conference space that we'll be using as well.
Oh, cool. So it's kind of like expanding a little bit into different areas around the town this year.
Yeah, and I think that's what I kind of hoped that would happen. So just with the teachers we've brought on and the different workshops we'll be hosting, and to fulfill the capacities, we've incorporated a couple more spaces. The Juniper is another one, looking over onto the Vermilion Lakes. There's some incredible spots.
Oh, it's so beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What has been the process for marketing the festival?
Ooh, that's my secret recipe. It was a lot of relationship building, face-to-face meeting, pounding pavement. That's the hustle. Definitely, that's what I thrive on. So I like doing that kind of work because it's so fulfilling at the end. But it was just telling people about what's happening and having them, if they were involved or wanting to be involved, having them share the information as well. And just the fact that it's bringing together a community of people that haven't really been brought together before, I think that's people really passionate about it and wanted to share that. So I think just that the word of mouth was so valuable. And I think that's obviously the biggest piece for any marketing, I think. Like Facebook and stuff and Instagram, it's all great and it's all useful, but nothing is more sustainable and long-term than a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah. I think too, it's interesting to see, I follow quite a few of the teachers who taught last year and who probably a lot of them are teaching again this year. And it's so interesting to see, them kind of marketing themselves. And I think that that's really cool. When a teacher has the opportunity to teach at an event that they feel really excited about, they want people to come to their class and experience that.
Exactly. And I think what's so great about the teachers that were involved in the Banff Yoga Festival was that they weren't necessarily the teacher that you follow on Instagram. They weren't necessarily the teacher that promotes themselves constantly. These people are humble, authentic yoga instructors who have this incredible practice that, they're pressing up into handstands from, nothing. And it's just, they're not the first ones to take images of themselves. So it's just kind of interesting because I think these teachers are some of the strongest I've ever experienced, but they're not the ones that are the ones you'll find easily on Instagram or Facebook, or it's this great underground kind of, it has that kind of charm to it. So I think people are just totally taken by the teachers, even if they've never heard their name before. All of these teachers have been teaching for more than 5 years, so some have been around, like Ann Douglas, who I'm just over the moon about. She's been teaching iRest for over around 30 years now. But wow. She's not taking images of herself on days, but so she's just, they're all so humble and so they're just so experienced and so educated in this topic and so authentic and kind and grounded. So that's why the quality is just exceptional.
Yeah. I love that kind of thinking about it doesn't really matter how many people you have following on Instagram. It doesn't make you a better teacher because you have a bigger following on Instagram. I know when I started the podcast, I kind of was brainstorming different teachers I could interview, and I thought of the ones that I knew personally, and then I thought of kind of the yoga celebrities who I follow along on social media, and I was it'd be so cool if I could get Yoga Girl on the podcast. And I don't necessarily feel like it wouldn't be cool to have her on the podcast. No, right. It's just that yeah, and she's famous for a reason. It'd be such an interesting story. Yet at the same time, I feel like some of my favorite conversations are people who are popular in their communities, who have built up a following, who are dedicated to their students, and it's such a relatable conversation. I feel like as a yoga teacher, I can relate to everything they're saying. on a level that I probably can't relate to somebody who has like 1 million followers on Instagram.
Right. And sometimes when, a class is too big, then the connection of student-teacher is lost. So that's another thing about the festival is that, I really wanted smaller rooms and smaller breakouts as well as, a large class to help, like, the collective kind of practice to motivate people. But the smaller breakouts are a great move because you're just able to connect and with the teacher a little bit more. You're able to absorb more information and maybe even ask questions. And so, that was that kind of variety was really important to me.
Yeah, that's great. And is that sort of what makes the Banff Yoga Festival unique, do you think?
I think the focus on, instead of, having these yoga celebrities like who travel around and teach, instead of having them be the stars of the event, they might be a guest, but the stars of the event are the locals. Yeah, it's to almost celebrate what's in our backyard and right within our access.
Yeah. And you really geared the festival towards like what the Bow Valley kind of like needed, I guess, right?
Totally. Like I had the Bow Valley at heart when I was organizing this, and everything that was curated was always sourced locally first before we had to, reach out to like a juicing company, for example. At the time, we reached out to, once no one could do a juice bar at the festival, then we reached out to Calgary and had the Calgary company come in, who are incredible. But, so, I mean, definitely sourcing local is the first part, and making the locals the headliners, which typically I think would change judging on what everyone else is doing in terms of like the yoga conference and the festival, like the yoga headliners are the ones who are traveling, whereas the festival was meant to reflect the way a yoga practitioner essentially practices, mainly practicing with their teacher or on their own, and then maybe they make a trip once a year to go practice with their guru or practice with a specific teacher. It was truly meant to just echo the way we practice every day and celebrate that kind of everyday practice.
Yeah, that's so great. I like the idea of that. I remember I went to Wanderlust in Oahu, and it was super, super cool experience, and I got to practice with some like amazing, well-known teachers. But I also really liked that they had like local teachers from the island of Oahu, or, from Maui, teaching. It was something that kind of surprised me because I'd never been to, this is my first like yoga festival that I'd ever been to. And I was like, oh, it's like they have these teachers that I've never heard of because I've never practiced in Hawaii before. And I was like, it's really cool that they're showcasing these people who are like local to the island, and these bands that are local to the island, and these like companies that sell, poke bowls, and it's like a roadside stand that's now at this festival.
Yeah, that's so great. I just love that. Like, you're not going to find that anywhere else, So it's like, it needs to be unique to the place, and I'm really sensitive to place and culture, and so I really wanted that to come through in the festival as much as possible, as much as a yoga festival can exude culture.
Yeah, for sure. And what have been some of your biggest learnings in doing the festival?
I think just setting out expectations and relationships. The first year I literally had no money, so I had to ask for a lot for free, and I think people are willing to give their time for free, but I think ultimately it comes with a cost, and I think it might not come out immediately, but I think there's an expectation there. So I think writing everything down is so important because it's it just honors the relationship. And I think especially in the yoga world, like contracts or like spreadsheets. You wouldn't think of that as much, or you would think that maybe, someone wouldn't be as strong in that area, but it's so important because it's not about, like protecting yourself. It's more about honoring the relationship than anything. And so that was a huge learning, because I shied away from contracts thinking like, I just want this person to know that I'm willing to give a lot and market them and feature them and highlight them and give them this experience of this. But it's truly, even if you're willing to give, there has to be some sort of, it's just so helpful to have a very clear expectation to help sustain the relationship.
Yeah. I think it's like interesting too, if you already have relationships with people, like say if you're friends with somebody, and it's like you want to just have that trust in that person that, they're going to show up and do what you've agreed to do. Yet it's like, it's still like, it's a business exchange, like it's exchanging something, and having that just written down, I feel like kind of takes that pressure off like your friendship or your relationship. And it's just like, okay, it's like very clear. It's very simple. Everyone has to do it. It's like streamlined.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And so that was a really big learning for me. It's been a game changer in terms of just how I approach all my conversation. And then, I think, and then just like the experience of the client is so essential, and our participants are who, this event is for, and also, we're trying to also really address the town of Banff, because it's in Banff, and Bow Valley in general, but wanting to honor all of the different stakeholders. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Just being sensitive to different perspectives was a huge part, and I really tried to understand, like locally, like what were the issues with having a big event like this in the town, and how can we solve those issues, and are they solvable, and what's if the town of Banff, if the community of Banff wouldn't want this, it's such a congested town, like we really wanted. I talked to so many locals, and they're like, oh, you're going to have it in the summer when it's like so busy. So we actually put it in the shoulder season so that, it wasn't congesting the town too much for the locals. And then also like the business owners, we really tried to be sensitive to the fact that they're leasing land and they're paying a business fee. And so we don't want to take away from the business. So we would never like bring in a business that already existed. And so we also made all of our scheduling very sensitive to the fact that, we want people to go into town and go for dinner, and so and experience the town as well. So there was just so many pieces, and understanding the place before the actual event started to be planned.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's so many like moving parts to think about when you're planning that. Did you get any like pushback from the town at all, or from anyone in the town?
I had some like comments that helped to inform me how to go about the festival better, but otherwise the town was so supportive. Like the town of Banff and the town planners really helped me to like understand what was needed, like what elements I could add to the festival that might help to what elements might help to sort of make the festival a little bit more appreciated. And then also like Banff Lake Louise Tourism helped me a lot with that, and also like community members just letting me know what we kind of need in terms of what kind of classes, I was just totally willing to take any kind of feedback, and I always wanted to incorporate it as much as possible.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
It was just truly like it was so much research, like not just about the yoga industry itself, but it was also about like the town and the community and that kind of thing.
Yeah. It sounds like you just put so much like time and effort into creating this amazing event, which is really, really neat to hear.
Thanks. Yeah, I know. It's so much fun.
Can you talk about some of the sacrifices that had to be made to have the festival be successful? Like, I know you kind of mentioned that you moved to Calgary from Banff.
Yeah. So I was, when I started planning this, I literally had $1,000. That was it. It's like, that was all the money to my name. And, I used that to make the down payment on the venue. So, and then until then, like, costs, it was a lot of asking, a lot of conversations, just being super vulnerable, like saying, look, like, I don't have the money to pay for this right now, but I worked on the side as well, and this is when you can be paid, or I never took out a loan or anything like that. I just, I approached different businesses and said, like, this is needed in the community. This is why you should be involved. This is what this event will bring for you. There was a lot of that. And then also, like, just me living a super, super simple life. Like, I didn't go over dinners. I taught yoga and planned this festival. So it was really just living a very, very simple life. I still live the same way, actually. It taught me so much about just minimalism and what you need and what you can live without, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so you're still working on the side of this?
Totally. Yeah. Working to fund it. Yeah.
So I guess, like, what does your sort of, like, weekly life look like?
Oh my gosh. Wake up, coffee immediately. And I work basically 8:30 to 5 every day. And, I still teach yoga here and there just to keep my foot in the door, and because I love it. And then in the evenings is usually yoga related work, so meetings, phone calls, Skype meetings, and then usually sitting in a cafe or in a restaurant and just working away until it's bedtime right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's so admirable that you're still working full time while, like, planning this event.
Thanks. It's fun. It's like, I really love working, especially when I'm doing something that I love. So, it doesn't feel like exhausting or anything like that. It's actually super empowering. So yeah, it's the time in my life to be doing this. So
yeah, definitely. Well, you have energy and you don't have children or obligations.
Yeah, people to answer to. No, I'm the perfect stage of my life to do this. So
awesome. And so the Banff Yoga Festival, is it something that you want to continue to do long term?
Yeah, I see it being a regular annual event. It probably would take, I really see it always being yoga centered, or I think it will always be well-being centered. But it might, the recipe will always be the same. The ingredients might change, but I think it's important that the mandate of the hyper-local festival will remain, especially as our town becomes more and more busy and we always are, like, the tourism changes in terms of who visits Banff. And so I think that will always stay with a local core, and their core as being yoga, but there might be some different additions and changes and collaborations as well.
Yeah, it's so cool that you've created this thing that you see as like a long-term project.
Yeah, it's definitely like a passion project that I hope will just continue, and it's I might have been the person that rolled out the actual execution of it, but it doesn't feel like mine. It feels like it's a group of people's. It feels like it belongs to everyone in the Bow Valley for sure, because they've all helped me very much to get it going. So
yeah, that's awesome. And so since then you've also started the YYC Yoga Festival, so like the Calgary Yoga Festival, is that right?
Yeah, so in the summer, this past summer, we started planning for it, and we started with the marketing first, and just started, again, FaceTime, pounding pavement, meeting with people and telling them about the idea. And yeah, so we're just, we're being very picky with our venue, and we found a venue, but I don't want to release it because it's very exciting. And yeah, it's a year away. So it's a year and a half in the works, but I think it's important that anything that's going to truly sustain itself needs to be locally built and locally founded. And so for me, yes, again, I might be the person that facilitates it, but am I the one that it features, or it's it needs to feature the Calgary teachers, the Calgary studios, and spaces in the Calgary musicians. So I think that's the way that it will always live on. And so right now it just hasn't been an ideal time. So it's definitely going to happen in February of 2018. But
more details to come.
Exactly, yes. Continue.
That's super awesome. I love how you've taken this passion project and your passion for yoga, marketing, event planning, and not only created something within the Bow Valley, but also seen a need for it in Calgary, where you're currently still living in Calgary, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah, right now I'm back and forth, but right now I'm being contracted in Calgary for another incredible event. Actually, it's a well-being and leadership conference, so it's bringing wellness into the corporate world, which is great because it's just becoming more and more mainstream, and that means more and more people are practicing yoga or have a wellness practice. So it's really important to me.
Yeah. I think that seeing more mindfulness in the workplace, more awareness around getting up and moving your body is so important.
Absolutely.
There was none of that when I worked in corporate. And maybe it was just where I was working, but I feel I'd be okay, I'm going to go to yoga at lunch. And that was only in the summers when we weren't even busy. But other than that, I'd have to be whoa, I've been sitting for 4 hours, not doing nothing other than moving my wrist to move my mouse. And I was I need to get up and walk around.
Oh, I know it. And some places there's a stigma to take a lunch break, but it's the place that I work exudes this having almost flexibility within the workplace, and they exude it, and it's everyone that works there is so efficient and so smart, and they really, really appreciate moving and taking a break in the middle of the day, or taking a walk, or going to get a coffee, so it just enhances their work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
I think if I was going to be in a corporate culture again, that would definitely be my non-negotiable. More so than salary is we have to have some sort of balance, and people need to be aware that that's important.
Oh, and it's been actually thinking in university, I was I don't know if I could ever be a 9-to-5er. I can't sit for too long, and I have to get up every 10 seconds. People will think I'm a terrible worker, but it's so reassuring to see this kind of flexible work environment start to infiltrate into the corporate world, for sure.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to me as I've been working for myself more. I find that I still kind of I hated being on somebody else's schedule, yet I still kind of do more of the typical 9 to 5 hours.
Right, and then haven't you noticed working remotely or for yourself, whereas once maybe you hated structure, now you crave it. I remember just...
Yeah, you have to create structure for yourself. And it's I would way rather do it on my own terms and my own rules than somebody else's. But it's I pull from my experience in corporate as okay, what worked, what didn't work there. Okay, I can apply this in my life now. It's so weird.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I know it's interesting working a 9-to-5 job. I actually love it, but it's been such a refresher because I've been working remotely and from cafes for the last 4 years, maybe 5. So it's been a dream. I just want people to just tell me when to leave and tell me when it's break and tell me what's next. And yeah, it's actually kind of refreshing because then I go home and my brain is ready to tackle the yoga festival.
Yeah. A couple things that I've learned about working remotely is having a place to go to, or it's kind of almost with the concept of yoga, having this sacred space to practice in. You almost need that space to work as well.
Totally. Where there's You can't see your bed. You can't see a couch. There's no, your place is clean, so you're not like, oh, I need to go, clean the bathtub. Or it's so important. I think that's why I worked from cafes for so long, because I had to mentally leave the house to be able to do work.
Yeah. I worked at cafes like a ton when I was in Atlanta, and then I worked mostly like at my house in Canmore when I was living there. And then since we've been traveling, I found that either cafes or co-working spaces have just been like infinitely better for actually getting stuff done.
Totally. And there's like this massive rise of co-working spaces now too. So that's like addresses this kind of nice balance between super structured and not structured at all.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a concept, something around like, our capacity to make decisions. And I think that the higher up we are in a workplace, like, or the higher up we are in like a job or something we're doing, like the more decisions we have to make. And so it's then we use like that decision making capacity in different ways. So it kind of makes sense, like you founded this festival, so you're making a lot of decisions for that. So then you come to this other workspace and it's like, somebody just tell me when I have to show up, when I can take my lunch break, when I can leave, because then you don't have to make as many decisions for yourself in that capacity.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
It's even kind of around like people who are kind of like C-suite, like executive up. A lot of them get like their laundry done for them, or have somebody who comes and cleans, or has somebody who grocery shops for them, because then they don't even have to use their decision making for that stuff. It's like they don't have to go to the grocery store and decide what they're going to eat. Because after a long day of working, I feel like we can all relate to like you get to the grocery store and you're like a zombie walking around.
Yeah, you just want to order, like, my go-to is edamames. I like edamame beans.
Mine's chips and guacamole.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I'm like, I don't know what I feel like. And then I'm like, I should be healthy. I'm like, I'll just get crackers and guacamole then.
So good. Do you make the guacamole or do you buy it?
It depends how tired I am.
Yeah.
If I'm tired, I definitely just buy it.
I love it.
And depends on the quality of avocado as well, of course.
Of course.
Awesome. So I'm curious, if you look like 5 years in the future, where do you see yourself going with this, with creating festivals and events?
Actually, I recently met with this man who has organized so many different events around the world, and one of them was the Skins game in Banff, and he's done a stand-up paddle board competition that's been running for several years now. I can't remember where that was, but somewhere hot. and then also he helped to bring Wanderlust to Oahu, and he calls himself, or he doesn't call himself, I think his title with his work is experience expert. And I love that idea. I love the idea that, like, basically just thinking up kind of a gathering of some kind of travel or experience, that it combines like a sport or some kind of movement or well-being, and music as well. And I think definitely creating festivals is something that I definitely want to do in the future. And it would be great to just travel and do that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have any destinations that kind of like are calling you more than others?
I would say New York is always calling me. Like every time, I've gone several times and I feel just drawn to it, lately. Spain as well. And I've already been there. It's places I've already been, actually. And Colombia as well.
Yeah, Colombia is on my list as well. I've been there before as well. It's spectacular. I love Colombia.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So those are places I'm definitely drawn to. Where to work, I would say, like I would love to do an event in New York. I would love to do an event in like the Caribbean, somewhere hot, and just have that go to every year. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be so good to have that set up. You like know you're going to like Barbados every single like January or something.
Yeah, but I really when I thought of another reason I wanted to do the Banff Yoga Festival was just I wanted something that always tied me to Banff because that's where I grew up. I love it so much. So, yeah, I as long as I can always go back to Banff, then I'll be happy.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. And then, so what were some of the biggest business lessons that you learned through creating the Banff Yoga Festival?
So the contract piece, making sure that all of my agreements are outlined because just out of respect for the person that I've signed the contract with. And then I learned so much about budgeting, but I knew that was something that I needed to learn about. So obviously I just made a commitment to learn about it. And then also just the art of delegation and knowing when to let go of some decisions that, you don't need full control of every single little detail. Like putting your trust in other people. That was a tough piece. Well, because finding good work is very, very difficult, especially when you're like, okay, I also don't have tons of money to pay you.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I'm so lucky to have the team that I'm working with me. I just feel so lucky. So I always try and make sure that they know how lucky I feel and how much I appreciate their involvement.
Awesome. I love that. Mm-hmm. Were there any other takeaways you had from creating the festival or that you learned like last year during the festival?
I think that, I put a big dependence on sponsorships, like, and trying to help to get businesses to see the value in being involved with the festival. And I'm not necessarily talking about the vendors because I think actually the vendors are part of what create the experience of the festival. I'm talking more about like, the financial sponsorships we would hope to receive based on marketing value. And I received this great piece of feedback, and it was actually from my dad. And he said, last year I felt really stressed out about making sure all of my sponsors were satisfied. But I think that the most important thing is finding a business that is in line with the mandate of the festival rather than just a business that's big enough to pay for the costs of the festival. So currently we're completely self-funded because I truly want the businesses to hop on board for the experience of the festival. Like I think of the festival as this big wave, right? And if businesses believe in what we're doing, then they'll just want to ride the wave without all these crazy expectations and everything. But instead, and having that relationship just be more organic than forced. And I think that's a big learning. So I think right now it's too new to have a sponsorship. So it's actually a kind of something I've just let go of, and it's been so great since I've let go of it. I don't feel pressure to bring on too many businesses, reaching out to sponsorships. It's more just like, we can totally do this ourselves. And that's in itself empowering at the same time. So
yeah, that's really, that's really interesting to hear. It kind of makes me think of actually, my boyfriend and I's travel podcast. Like we got, and this is obviously on a way smaller scale, but we got our like first sponsorship for it, and we're like, we're on a roll. We should get a second one. We got a second one, and then they both like ran out in January. And we were like, oh, we're putting all this pressure on ourselves to get someone else. But it was really important for us to make sure that it was a company that we'd experienced personally and that they were like somebody that we wanted to promote to our audience. And we were just like, weren't able to find anyone that kind of fit all of our criteria. We're like racking our brains, sending out all these emails. We're getting like nothing back. And we're so discouraged. And then we were just like, this has always been a hobby for us. Like having sponsorship was amazing, but it's like, we're so passionate about what we're doing. It doesn't matter if we're making like $30 extra an episode.
Totally. And I think the more and more you build, the more and more you're authentic to what you stand for and like the content that you build, the more and more attractive you will be to an ideal sponsor for your business,
Yeah.
So I've stopped worrying about sponsorship so much and just been kind of like I'm just going to stay authentic to what we do. And if a sponsorship's going to come, it's going to be the right one because they're attracted to the authenticity of and quality of what we stand for.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good learning for sure. I feel like that can apply to like so many areas of life too.
Totally. And I think like if you're a business person, you're thinking, okay, well, we got to get a sponsorship ASAP. And I am a businesswoman, but I think that it's more sustainable if you're just totally authentic.
Yeah. I think that that's like one of the biggest things that I think is kind of confusing with yoga sometimes. Like when you're a yoga teacher, you're in the yoga industry, it's like, how do I be authentic yet like still put a price on how much I'm worth and charge people? And it can be challenging for sure. But I think that as long as you're like continuing to have your voice come through and everything that you put out there and that you're being honest with yourself, then it becomes like a lot easier, I guess. Amazing. So if people are interested in finding out more about the Banff Yoga Festival, where can they go?
So they could go to banffyogafestival.com. We also have our Facebook group you could follow, and we have Instagram and Twitter. And I think we're Banff Yoga Fest on Twitter. We're Banff Yoga Festival on Instagram. And then you can also directly buy tickets on either our website or you can go to some of our teachers and they have a link that you can use. And so it depends on, what's easiest for you. But we have a few teachers mainly from Canada. They're actually all from Canada this year that they all have links to get tickets as well. So. Okay,
awesome. Yeah. And I'll put links through. I think I've interviewed a number of the Banff Yoga Festival teachers, so I'll put links through to that as well so that people can check those out and get to know those teachers a little bit more if they're interested in the festival. And then where can people go to find out about the Calgary Yoga Festival?
So right now, it's just a landing page. It's YYC Yoga Festival, and it's got limited information. But if they want to do that, and then we're just launching our Instagram. We haven't launched it yet, actually. It's there, but it hasn't been launched yet. But we're YYC Yoga Festival on that as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so people can go follow along and expect content in the next little while.
Yeah, and we'll be officially launching everything post Banff Yoga Festival. So.
Okay, cool. So come springtime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the dates for the Banff Yoga Festival this year are May 26th to 29th?
Exactly, yeah. So, May 26th, which is a Friday, till the 28th, Sunday. Awesome. We end nice early on Sunday so you can get home before your week starts.
Amazing. Well, hopefully people can check that out.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today, Kaeleighh. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That was great.
All right. So there's the episode with Kaeleigh Doherty of the Banff Yoga Festival. And for those of you who are interested in the Banff Yoga Festival or more about what Kaeleigh's been up to, definitely check it out at banffyogafestival.com. There'll be a link to that on the show notes at www.mbomyoga.com. Just a quick reminder, if you want to stay up to date with everything new and exciting that's happening with the podcast and on the blog, you can sign up for the newsletter at www.mbomyoga.com/newsletter. You can also join the community on Facebook and Instagram at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I now separated my Twitter account, so it's separate from my Amanda Kingsmith Twitter to an MBOM Twitter, which is MBOM_yoga. So definitely check that out as well. And as always, thank you so much for listening and namaste. I'll see you next week.